Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon and part of the MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. So you have reached the portion of the podcast where I'll be going over portions of my book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations. And so if you have any questions or want more information, you can either drop a comment below, or you could pick up a copy of the book anywhere they sell books online, if it's a major bookseller. And if you disagree with anything I'm talking about, or you have a better way to do something, definitely let me know. You can follow us on social. We're at Veracity Marketing on Instagram and LinkedIn. And you could give a comment. You could also tell us maybe you want us to cover something else. We are open to suggestions. Thank you for your support. Hi. Okay, so we are talking about probably more important press tools than the PR press release. And probably the most important tool, like in general in PR, is the pitch. Well, in the book, I say it's actually your instinct. That's your most important tool. But today we're talking about like real tools that are listed in here. So the press pitch. Okay, so what is that? So so think of it like a proposal of some sorts. So you can get a little creative, but not too cute. Like, just actually don't get creative, because I think that's annoying to the press. When I say you can get creative, I mean like you just don't have to follow the standard press release format. That's it. But you do want to get pretty succinct, concise, and just say what you want, basically. So you start out with maybe hooking them with, a couple lines about your client, and then you want to go into what are you asking them for, right? Like, why are you pitching? So here I have some bullet pointed things that you would ask them for. And then once you decide what you're going to ask them for, then the meat kind of can flow of the pitch. So first of all, you're asking them to cover a story idea that that you created that incorporates your organization. So it could be like your CEO sharing opinions on industry trends or current events or breaking news. And so you could just say, I mean, you could even, if you already kind of know what you're doing and you already are in a flow with the press, you can just say, hey, this happened. Do you want X, Y, and Z's take on this? But if you feel like, you haven't really done a lot with this organization, you might need to kind of hook them a little bit more. You could say, well, here's what my CEO would say about this. A few little nuggets that of interesting thoughts, or here are some stats on what's happening right now in the industry to kind of tie into industry trends. Or if your CEO or whoever your spokesperson has some news, like future trends, like predictions, what they think is going to happen, then you could share that and then say, if you'd like to hear more, please do an interview with us. Or there's other things you can do even within the same pitch. So maybe the pitch is explaining a little bit more about the press release. I mean, typically the press release should speak for itself, but if you feel like you need to say something else about it, maybe the pitch is actually more important than the press release. Anyway, so you could also ask them to include your organization in a story they're probably already covering. So you're not necessarily bringing them a story idea, but they're going to cover it because you've followed the press. You know what they're typically going to cover every time each time of the year, or that you've looked into their editorial calendars, which are mentioned not only in the book, but we have a blog post about that. That is key to know about. Or you've researched their publication and just see what they cover. And you like, oh, you have this CEO profile you do every Friday. Here's my CEO. you know. And then you could ask them to just take a meeting with you and or your client. It could be a desk side that you could do over Zoom. That's where it just kind of where you come in for a quick meet and greet, or you could just go to happy hour or coffee. We don't do those a lot, you know, they sound like really fancy, but sometimes just depends, you know, if it's a really good, you know, key contact that covers what your press has to say. I'm sorry, what your client might have to say. And then the other thing is you could ask them to link to a blog post that you wrote, that your client or your org wrote, that is about a certain topic that they actually might cover. So it's not like a press release, or it's not like a topic like, oh, we're so great. It's like, you know, here's some industry stats or trends or whatever. And you can actually package a lot of these ideas into one. So you could say, oh, I have this press release, but, you know, you're probably already going to cover X, Y, and Z. Or if you do cover X, Y, and Z, here's this blog post that we have that has like industry stats or predictions or something that you could link to as part of your coverage. Or you could also, give us a call and we can give you comment for the coverage, or we could pen an article for you to run or a blog post. So that was the other thing. You could even just pitch and say, you know, my client thinks this, you know, this is insert newsworthy information. My client thinks this. Would you like an article written, customized for your publication about this? And then the article is all about this, you know, the news. And then that runs under your CEO or whoever's name. Okay, that's all I have today. Thanks, folks. Okay, so we're still talking about tools, and a huge PR tool is photos. So not only can you take your own photos, but you should also have professionals take your photos in a few instances, like a lot of instances. The instances are, I lost my place here. Okay, but I know the instances. I don't know why I need to look at the book for these. Products, events, and fundraisers, sometimes same thing, and headshots. So products, especially if you're launching a new product, you need a professional to shoot that. And then later you can fill in with some fun social media shots or whatever, but you'll definitely at least want a professional to shoot your first round. And then that'll probably be what you send to press. And then events, you know, you don't always need a professional, but when we're talking about an event that's going to happen frequently, year after year after year, you probably want a photographer at least at your first event, because then you'll use those photos to market the following events. And then fundraisers, kind of same thing. A lot of fundraisers are events, so you'll want that, and especially to highlight and honor your mucky mucks, your VIPs and your sponsors and donors. You'll probably want a nice photographer like photo, because people want to look good in the photos. And then headshots for sure, if it's somebody you're going to be using for PR a lot, in terms of being a spokesperson or CEO, you want them to like the shot that you're going to have published. And so basically photos are so important that I use the example in this book of when I was trying to pitch out some jams. I actually was in dialogue with O magazine, Oprah's old magazine that's no longer anymore. And the art director said it would all depend on how they shot the photos. And so even though I'm saying you need to have a professional shoot them, oftentimes a really fancy magazine will still say that they want to shoot the photos because they want it to look a certain way and they want to see how it'll look. And so now I know that also maybe they just thought our photos were ugly, and that maybe they thought they could make the jams look better, but they couldn't, because they couldn't change the label or the logo. So it didn't run, it didn't work. So you're probably thinking, well, then why use a photographer? Well, we got in other places like Bon Appetit, all those foodie magazines. And they used our photos. So yeah, so just get a photographer. It's okay. And then you'll get comfortable taking your own photos too. Because of social media, and then you might as well use them for PR. And we'll get into all that. And we'll also get into how to use the photos. But just don't forget, photos are an important PR tool. Oftentimes we talk about the written word when sometimes you can not land a story because of the photos. So it makes you wonder if we've been focused on the wrong thing all along. Hi. So when speaking about photos in relation to being a PR tool, we can't forget about photo captions. So photo captions are just the little, when you're reading the newspaper and there's just a little blurb underneath the bottom of the photo, that's a photo caption that everybody writes, whether you're in PR or you're in journalism. Sorry. I'm tired today. Okay, so while you want to think about how you put that together, it's got to just be a few lines. And the reason why you want to write it is just because it gives you another little bit of control to say, well, okay, back up. First of all, it helps the press. So we write that. Secondly, if you don't write it, they might just ask you. And it's just a way to sneak in your messaging. But you only need a few lines. And honestly, I really do it just to kind of not be a jerk. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just helps. So it's just one thing to do. I know it's hard for us because it'll add 15 minutes, if that, 7 minutes onto our time on a project, but sometimes that's better because you just have a little bit more control. You've got the name spelled right. You've got their title in there. And so anyway, so what you want to do is you always want to list people from left to right. So you just list out, if it's 3 people, let's say in the photo, list out their names with their titles. And then you say pictured from left to right. And then if they're all at the same place, from the same place, just say from da da da. You don't list the company 3 times basically. But if it's a group shot, larger, more than 5 people, you'll not want to say who everybody is, or all. Maybe you can say their names but not their titles. Or if it's a huge 25 people, just say this crowd gathered at XYZ. And so, you just want to add, it's again, 2 sentences, really short sentences, saying who's there, who they're with, and what they're doing. So add some sort of action to the photo in terms of the words that describe it. And then you might want to sneak in your results to the photo. So this group was here. They collected X amount of garbage to go here, or not to go here. I'm not going to take garbage anywhere, but to help this cause. This group from X company raised money, X amount of money for X cause by doing this. 5 words on what this is. And then that's it. And that really just helps people out. And then again, it adds some kind of context to the photo so that it's not depicted incorrectly. And then, you do know that nobody reads, right? In terms of the public. So photos are really important. And so I think the words that go underneath the photo is probably what's looked at, not the article half the time. So you might want to put some thought into the photo caption. And then we also think about how we label photos too. I'm sorry, we're just so psycho. Sometimes I just make myself tired. But yeah, you don't want to just send some random photo out without telling the press what the photo, in terms of without labeling it. Obviously, you've got a photo caption, right? But what is the name of the photo as it's labeled? And so you've got to at least have the client name or the company name in that photo. And we'll go through what photos to send and when and how and all that. Just a little ditty on photo captions for you today.
Thanks for listening. For more PR insight, be sure to check out Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, at prtalk.co. Also, please subscribe, rate, or leave us a review.